You're listening to Uncoupled and Unfiltered, the show for people smart enough to get out of the wrong relationship and bold enough to do it without losing their damn minds. Hosted by Ksenia Mensch, a divorce strategist and straight-talking badass, this podcast is your no-fluff, no-shame, take-control guide to surviving litigated divorce with clarity, guts, and zero regrets. Let's get into it. Here's Ksenia.
Welcome back to Uncoupled and Unfiltered, the podcast where we get real about relationships, life after separation, and making smarter choices in love. I'm your host, Ksenia Minch, and today we're diving into a topic many of us have faced but rarely talk about: how not to go back and date your ex. I am thrilled to welcome Dr. Marnie Foreman, a licensed psychotherapist, marriage and family therapist, and nationally recognized relationship expert. Marnie helps individuals and couples break unhealthy patterns, communicate more effectively, and build healthier, more fulfilling relationships. She is also the author of Ghosted and Breadcrumbed: Stop Falling for Unavailable Men, and Get Smart About Healthy Relationships, offering practical insights into why we're drawn back to the wrong people and how to stop that cycle. So, in today's episode, we'll explore why exes can be so tempting, the patterns that pull us back, and concrete strategies to move forward with confidence. But before we continue, make sure you click like and subscribe so you do not miss another episode of how to rebuild your life after a big change without relearning the same lessons. So let's get into it. Dr. Marnie, thank you so much for being here.
Well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
So I am excited to talk about this topic because exes,
Mhm.
I do not think I know a single person who never questioned themselves what would happen if I go back to X, right? Number one, what got you interested in this topic specifically?
Yeah, I am always interested in people's relationship patterns, their pull, the kind of person that they are drawn to.
Hmm.
A lot of times it's unconscious, right? It's like deeply buried within, and it's influenced by kind of like the family system that lives inside our bodies, in our nervous
Hmm.
system, our heads. The things that have been patterned early on in our lives that pull us kind of in the direction of a certain type of person. And if you're getting out of a marriage, I think a very obvious question, right, that people ask themselves and reflect on is, how do I avoid choosing the same type? I don't want that kind of person. They're able to list usually
Hmm.
very, very clearly, these are the reasons why I don't want to be with that person anymore and the reason I got divorced. Yet we find sometimes it's like 2.0. They go out, they start dating, and lo and behold, they go with a similar type of person, or they find that there's a similar dynamic or similar problems.
Hmm.
In my practice, I'm often trying to help people prevent just that they're trying to do some archaeological psychological dig on themselves to make sure that they are making a much better choice or a healthier choice
Hmm.
or just a different choice. Because I know not every person divorces because a relationship was like terribly unhealthy. There could be other things that were at play, like goal misalignment or some
Hmm.
fundamental thing, but they're able to say, my ex was a good person, just we didn't align in some way. But it's
Hmm.
always good to explore what happens so that you make a much better choice in your future because most people do want another partner. So,
Of course.
yeah.
I recently recorded an episode and it almost sounds as if it's counterintuitive, like we are fine as women. I think we're becoming fine to be on our own, but it doesn't mean we do not want to have another partner. It just will learn how to be on our own, which I think is also extremely healthy. That's breaking the
Yeah.
pattern of potentially dating ex. Um,
Right.
I always say it's with your ex, it's like same lesson, different face. Until you take a really
Yeah.
deep dive into that. And I
Yeah.
think a lot of women do not recognize that until it actually is over. And when you do like a big picture review and you're like, oh my gosh, that was exactly the same person. So, is there an effective way of maybe recognizing the patterns a little sooner, or even from the beginning say, no, I'm good. That's my past now.
Yeah, so I think people have to recognize and own the fact that we're often not choosing partners so logically. We're choosing them from a pretty emotional place, a
Yes.
feeling. And sometimes what's running the show from behind the scenes is just something that may just feel familiar or it's an intensity and we conflate it sometimes with, oh, like something's happening, there's love, there's chemistry. So those
Hmm.
familiar patterns can feel safe or kind of feels like home, even when you can say to yourself, I know they're painful. Or we look
Hmm.
back and we can logically make sense of our story and say, okay, I didn't like this or that, or I'm never going to have that circumstance again. So I think people have to understand the why maybe we stayed in a particular relationship or how we adapted or um, twisted ourselves into pretzels at times to make that marriage okay. And
Hmm.
the dynamic that might sneak in with the next person is usually quiet, right? It's not like you're going to get a flashing sign that says this person's just like your ex, or something like that, or don't do this, or this isn't good, or the red flag is on fire. Usually it's like a slow, quiet washing over things that and before long you're like,
Hmm.
oh, I think I love this person, or I really care about them, or I'm deep in a relationship. We have all this time together, but inside I know something's off, something's not right. So
Hmm.
it's certainly important to take a look at that,
Hmm.
explore that, right? And we
Hmm.
know that divorce affects sort of how we see lessons that we've learned, in our life
Yes.
too. And the other thing I'd like people to be really, really careful of, and I'm sure you've probably talked about this a bunch of times on your show, which is, divorce is a pretty profound loss and it's extremely stressful. And some people date from that space of fear or loneliness
Hmm.
or feeling bad about themselves and needing to prove that they're lovable. And so they end up sometimes making a choice or a decision during a phase where they really should just be grieving and should
Hmm.
be figuring things out and hey, I can do that thing that I wasn't able to do that I really like, and I can do it now because I don't have my spouse telling me I can't do it or whatever it
Hmm.
is. And so um, just remembering that dating in a period of grief just isn't always isn't always the best idea. We may not make the best choices.
I think, I mean, you're absolutely right. After divorce, there is such a turmoil of emotions, and a lot of times you may feel like you're not enough, and almost you're trying to prove
Mhm.
to yourself, to the world, to the ex that no, I'm still wanted. Oh my gosh, no, this is what I could have been doing. And it's almost like a rebellious teenager stage, but it comes from a place of scarcity and fear of not being by yourself all the time. And
Right.
I have seen a lot of women and men too, absolutely. They just go, but women settle more frequently than men. Men kind of date up, women date down, which is funny, right? But I've
Yeah.
seen women, they just go and exhaust themselves on dates. And I'm like,
Yeah.
but
Yes.
why? He's not even your interest. He's not your type, knowing your type. He's
Right.
just nothing. Why are you wasting your precious energy and time to be just to get a little bit of attention? It makes me very sad
Yeah.
that
Yes.
we women tend to do that to ourselves, and then our self-esteem goes down even more. So it's not like it's boosting. We may have a boost a little bit and then it drops lower, and it's almost like a vicious cycle until you step away.
Yes, and for a lot of people, they don't get out of a relationship for the same type of reason. They do
Yes.
not want to tolerate that feeling of loneliness. And yes, I can completely, see that it's a horrible feeling. It's a really difficult feeling.
Hmm.
And so not being able to have some tolerance, we'll say, right? That it
Mm-hmm.
kind of pushes people out of like what we call like the window of tolerance for a difficult emotion.
Mm-hmm.
And loneliness can be one of them. But I think if think about anything that motivates us, emotion always motivates us to do something, right? And as
Yes.
basic as like when I explain this to people, like when you feel hunger, right? That tells your brain to go get something to eat, right?
Mm-hmm.
So think about what happens when you feel loneliness. What is it priming? What is it telling you to do? And sometimes it's going to tell you, well, be with a person or go on all of these dates or do these things at all costs so you don't feel the loneliness.
Mm-hmm.
And we know that the action that someone takes as a result of the feeling isn't always the healthiest. It's not always best for them. It's not going to move them towards the growth that I think they're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
When you get out of a marriage and you've been through a divorce, for some people it goes from being stressful all the way to
Mm-hmm.
traumatic, right? And everything in between. And
Yes.
we can have growth from that, right? We can kind of have the phrase is even post-traumatic growth, which I think can be applicable here. How are you growing as a result of what happened to you that in that
Mm-hmm.
experience? And so you want to allow room for that to happen. And if you're trying to always quelch down the feeling, there's a good chance you may not be making the best choice. And if you do, look, we know there's luck, we know there's randomness, so I know there's caveats, but
Mm-hmm.
the vast majority of people really need that time to grow and
Mm-hmm.
reflect and
Yes.
decide with integrity and intention and a lot of forethought about the kind of person they want to be with next.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'll share a personal story because this is like a by the book, what not to do. I dated somebody a few years ago, and it was I, it ended not the way I wanted to. Let's put it this way. And what did I do? I got under to get over, which is not good, right? So it's almost like I was trying to rebuild
Yeah,
my boost. He offered to be there,
yeah.
and I'm like, okay, I'll take it. But the funny thing, my best friend always referred to him as empty calories. And
Empty
it was
calories, I
so
love that.
true because you
Yeah.
eat it, you're like, oh, I'm enjoying, but after that, I feel worse. And it was
Right,
like
there's a
very
dip. There's a dopamine hit, and then there's like a dip and a deep dive.
it
So,
was not,
yeah,
it was actually one of the worst decisions I've made, but this is how I
wow.
learned it's how to
Yeah,
preserve your energy. And number one, if anybody's thinking to get under, to get over, do not do that. It doesn't help. Because it destroys your self-esteem even more. And you like consuming those empty calories without
right,
like any enjoyment. It's just in your body right now that will take some time to release.
right,
Um,
right.
but that's another thing that leads me because of that mindset again, how we're trying to avoid these emotions, negative emotions that we don't want to process on our own, how we actually can go back to the same ex, because you know how it happens. You just got over the guy, boom, he comes back. And he's like, oh, I changed. I just want another chance.
Yeah.
How many women went back? Let's talk about that. And why does it happen? Why do a
Mhm.
lot of women
Oh,
think
yeah.
this story is going to end differently?
Oh, yeah. So there, I think the back and forth is so common. So whether it's the actual person that you're actually going back to, like your actual physical ex, or a
Yes.
replica of your ex, yeah. So these things are pretty common. So I think people can think about it as you had an attachment, regardless of the quality of the bond that you had with that person. It
Mm-hmm.
is still an attachment bond. So that could mean it wasn't very good, but when we've had a lot of interactions with people, and certainly we've spent a lot of time, and then we know sexual intimacy adds a layer to that, it is hard just to pull yourself out of it and move on and be clear-headed and just cut ties, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're human. People who can do that sometimes even scare us, right? When someone can detach
Yes.
that easily, that scares us too. So we can be overly attached and not wanting to, get away from that to preserve our own sense of self and find a healthier attachment or situation, and again,
Hmm.
tolerate whatever negative feelings come with that. So that's really hard for us. And sometimes the easiest pathway is to just go right back to that person. But usually what tends to happen shortly, right? Whether it's a week or a couple months, you say, oh gosh, the same, same crap, different day. It's the same thing
Hmm.
over again. And I'm certainly one for seeing what is possible for that relationship, if real change is possible. And if that person, maybe they'll go get some help with you or that sort of thing,
Hmm.
and to see if you can get where you need to go. But knowing when to throw in the towel and that you may not ever be able to get your needs met. And are you willing to give up those needs and what is good for you and right for you just to stay in a relationship that is so or
Hmm.
bad, not
Yes.
good, not a healthy situation. So
Hmm.
it's a tough circumstance. I would love for people to give themselves certainly some grace for that because it's a very common dynamic. It's a common situation. And it is hard to get out of something, especially when you've been together really long, or if
Hmm.
you had kids together, you weave your life together. So it is not easy at all. I don't envy
Hmm.
people that are in that circumstance because it is a toughie.
I find for myself, I made a rule never to go back to the ex. Never. I know it can be incredibly
Mhm.
tempting because of the
Yeah,
hope, because of
right.
romanticizing and glamorizing things that we're not even that great. It's just what we create in our
Hmm.
head. But to me, I always consider it's like rereading a book. You know how the story ends. There may be a little, it's like the difference between book and a movie, right? There may be
Right,
some details different, but the ending is the same. There
right,
is a reason why
right,
they're ex. And I think we women
right.
torment ourselves
Yeah,
by going back, hoping they changed, but they didn't. They
right,
usually, they
right.
men, listen, everybody can change and,
Yeah,
grow, but usually they do not come back because they miss you on one other chance. It usually they come back because, oh,
yeah,
she's no longer in rotation. Like it's a little different approach for them
yeah,
when they come back compared to women. And I know how
yes.
tempting it is, but I think for women who are facing the situation, and I agree, it's really tough. I think
Hmm.
they shouldn't judge themselves. Consider this possibility. Do not limit yourself. Oh, no, 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 his ex are never going to go back. Consider why
Right,
you would go back. What do you think may have changed? Truly explore the possibility and give yourself an honest answer. And do not judge yourself if the answer is yes, it's okay. And
right.
I think a lot of
I,
times women need to be much more forgiving and kinder to ourselves. Like
yes,
we are
yes.
kind to others.
Yes, that would be great because I think we could be really, really hard on ourselves and
Hmm.
punitive to ourselves. But I think everything you said is usually accurate. I think obviously I'm in the business of helping people change, so I know it's
Hmm.
possible,
Oh, for
but it's
sure.
not going to be because you are pushing it on that person, right? Which is kind of what you're talking about. If that person took it upon themselves, seemed
Yes.
really motivated, maybe got some professional help, did what they had to do to evolve and change, and usually it's not quick either. That's one thing. They're not going to suddenly change because you try a different strategy to get them to change. And a lot
Hmm.
of women get very, very wrapped up in that I can help them. I can make the little boy in him grow up, or I see the potential. I can help them get there. I can love them into the change. No, none of that really works. So
Mm-mm.
it would have to come from that person. So,
Yes. I think we as women we always hope the more we give, the more we receive, which is actually the opposite. With men, I always
mhm,
find it's like with cats. Like the more you pat them, the more they run away. But when you don't pat them, they're like come and purl over
yes.
your feet, and you're like, wait, no, please, So I again, we
Absolutely.
cannot change the men because they're not wearing diapers. Like it's up
Right.
to them. Um, how
Yeah.
how can we avoid how women can avoid losing themselves in the relationship? How can they maintain this
Mm.
sense of autonomy, not even autonomy, being independent, but mentally? mentally strong and not lose ourselves in a relationship.
Well, it's not easy to do. A lot of women are raised and socialized in a way to keep the relationship in the forefront of their minds and to
Mm-hmm.
be, we're sort of the monitoring people in the relationship. How's it going emotionally? How's the
Yes.
connection? Are we, carrying all the emotional load together? So we naturally do that. I think we're natural caretakers as well. And
Mm-hmm.
so we just have to be very careful about that. And especially if you were put in a role like that early on, growing up, you'll want to take a look at your family, what we call the family of origin, that family of origin
Yes.
history. What were your parents like? What was their marriage like? What role were you assigned in your family? Are you taking that through into your adult relationships?
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that isn't so easy to change either. And I think for a lot of the things we're talking about, therapy is designed to help with a lot of that
Mm-hmm.
stuff. It's designed to kind of have the mirror held up and challenge you, right? Let's challenge you to change. It feels comfortable for you to overfunction or
Mm-hmm.
overdo or caretake or push and pursue all the time for the connection in the relationship. Maybe a mirror has to be held up to that person and they have to be challenged a bit. What would happen if you didn't do that?
Mm-hmm.
Is there some need that you have that keeps playing out over and over? Are you looking for a different end to this story? You're hoping to rewrite
Mm-hmm.
maybe some history from your earlier years. And sometimes it's even from a past relationship. Some women have been married 20 years, they get out of that marriage, then they're in another one. And the 20-year marriage that they had a certain role. And lo and
Mm-hmm.
behold, it's like that pull once again. So I think it requires some depth of exploration for
Yes.
people to try to see it and bring what is unconscious. So it really gets embedded in our unconscious or subconscious mind. So
Mm-hmm.
it's often not something that a person is choosing to do. It just almost seems like they're naturally doing it. And so
Mm-hmm.
that does take somebody helping, guiding, digging in a little bit to get you out of those kinds of places and to try out new and different behaviors. And that could also be risky, right? If you're trying something
Yes.
new.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, some women have even been exposed to very early traumatic circumstances. And so
Mm-hmm.
there could be a lot of reactivity there with that, and it requires some processing as well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I also find that, I want people to know that time is their friend in these circumstances. You should not need to rush anything, especially with a new partner or making a decision. Make that really carefully. Take your time, really explore everything. What's
Mm-hmm.
driving you to maybe go with a particular person? And the
Yes.
other thing I think is a very untapped resource, which is your support system. Your friends know probably more and see more than you do. And it's so hard to be open to the feedback, but it is such a gift to get feedback from the people who really do love and care about you. And you
Yes.
have to believe that they may be seeing something that you can't see. And
Mm-hmm.
giving them a chance and an opportunity, being open and curious with them about their feedback. So if you're
Mm-hmm.
considering going back to an ex or jumping in with a new partner or moving in with somebody new, I would check it out with these people because you're
Mm-hmm.
gonna get some hopefully honest feedback if you're open to it and you show that you can take it and that you want it
Mm-hmm.
because you are worried about making mistakes and you want to make sure you are taking more of like an aerial view of the
Yes.
situation and your friends and loved ones can help you do that.
Yes, and the support system is everything. I love
Mhm.
having strong friendships with men and women. So I have both. I am very lucky. I have couple men friends and I have very close female friends, also very small circle. But they will give it to me without
Right.
any holding back. And I know it comes from a place of love. It's not that they're like, oh, you
Mhm.
shouldn't have fun. No, they look at me
Right.
and they say, listen, you really messed up here. Or this one, you should really be careful with him because he was not nice here. Look at this pattern. And when we're in situation, we
Mhm.
tend to be blind. It's like we put ourselves in the box and we cannot look outside, and they're like birds flying, and they're like, oh, this is what we're seeing. And I think you're absolutely correct. You have to be open. And even if you're not seeing it at this moment, just at least think about it. And when attention is brought to you,
Mhm.
you're going to start seeing things more clearly.
Right, right. Digest what they're saying.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. It's key to self-awareness, which
Yes.
is a necessity, in any of these circumstances where we felt like we made a mistake with
Mm-hmm.
a person, another partner,
Yes.
right? So we're going to want to know ourselves, our perhaps even
Yes.
our contributions.
Mm-hmm.
If you're just blaming your ex entirely,
No.
you're going to
No.
have trouble. So you are going to want to have some accountability and look at, what was my role in the distress that we had or it not working out? What would I
Mm-hmm.
change about myself that probably wouldn't work in a lot of relationships?
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's agendas for our own change. Um,
Yes.
it's much easier to do that than, of course, than to try to get someone else to change too.
I also noticed that when you are doing self-work and you're working with effective therapist like you who brings attention to the patterns that are
Mhm.
like ingrained in us, I think it's important when we are almost like on autopilot, are thinking of doing something when it comes to the partner. I think it's important once you're aware that this maybe something is a feature you need to change or work on. If you ask yourself a question, why am I doing this? What is driving me to take this action? Is it
Mhm.
because it validates me? Is it something I'm hoping he changes? Like, what exactly motivates me to do that? And once we can honestly answer that question, we can actually figure out, are we going to do it or not? But it comes from subconscious to conscious. And I think it can help fix some patterns so you do not go back to X if that's not what you want.
Yes, absolutely. People usually can start to piece together those
Mm-hmm.
those patterns and those dynamics that they have both in their life, like if they're looking back at multiple relationships, and of course
Yes.
their early childhood relationships, and then there's a pattern within the relationship as well,
Mm-hmm.
what we call that interpersonal pattern.
Mm-hmm.
So it is really helpful to look at all of those things
Mm-hmm.
and to really define for yourself what's going to make the relationship healthy, or
Mm-hmm.
what does a healthy relationship feel like?
Mm-hmm.
And some people don't really know the answer, or the answer isn't the usual words that they would think of, like consistency and safety and transparency, and openness. And, some of those words are the words that I think make a healthy relationship more than a physical, looking at a physical
Yes.
type or
Yes.
going, well, I feel a lot of chemistry. Okay, you could feel chemistry, but what if those other ingredients aren't there? You're
Mm-hmm.
probably not going to have a healthy relationship with that person.
How women can identify, for instance, they've never felt, let's say,
Mm,
safety. They do not know what consistency looks like. They've seen inconsistency. So if somebody, let's say, sends one more follow-up compared to no follow-up, they're like, oh, they're consistent. How can they not fool themselves or not gaslight themselves into this must be healthy because he's doing a little better than the other one, but it still may
yeah,
be
yeah.
unhealthy.
I think people should feel like they're more themselves, that
Mm,
you are who you are at your core, and it feels like you can bring that and have that respected and taken care of. And
mm-hmm,
it feels good just to be you, and that you're not managing things, managing the person, managing the relationship, managing your own emotions. Oh, I was
mm-hmm,
too needy. I was too this. I was too that. I didn't. If you're doing that, you're not yourself. You're not that true north of who you are.
mm-hmm,
And so that's certainly one thing, but I know it's a very nuanced question to answer, right?
mm-hmm,
Um, I think again, the exploration of it, right? Journaling it, writing some
Mm-hmm.
things down, noticing what your nervous system is, how it's getting activated.
Mm-hmm.
Being able to name it, is this fear? Is something happening that's making me feel fearful, or something making me feel like I can just relax into this?
Mm-hmm.
you know Notice that inward attending, sometimes through mindfulness exercises, helping you inwardly attend to what's going on in your body, because that's the initial signal that we always get. When we have an emotion, it's usually a physical sensation, and our brains right away code it like, is this safe or dangerous? That's the immediate.
Yes.
Then it filters down, and our stories, right? So we go up in our head in the story, we tell ourselves that's what paints over it. And so sometimes slowing all that down, what just happened? How am I feeling? What am I telling myself about this situation? Would I put this
Mm-hmm.
in the safe category? Would I put this in the doesn't feel good, doesn't really feel safe? So slowing that down for yourself, because these things happen really quick. The emotions quick.
Mm-hmm.
So that would probably be what some of the best advice I could give somebody, is to really slow down
Yes.
to that.
How would you help somebody overcome this fear? If I slow down, I may lose them.
Well, that to me would be a very clear signal that it's not a safe relationship, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or that has to be checked out. Okay. So if you think the person is just going to poof disappear on you, and you're not feeling safe, that means you're going to want to check that out, right? You're going to
Mm-hmm.
want to take a risk, right? It requires a lot of vulnerability here to go
Yes.
to that person and say, I kind of have this kind of off feeling, and I just need to check something out with you. How are you
Mm-hmm.
seeing us? How are you seeing where we're going, our future? Um, I just want to get a sense of what's going on in your head. It would make me feel more grounded and more safe in this relationship.
Mm-hmm.
The answer is going to give you a ton of information. If you have somebody who evades the question, that's one answer, right? If you have someone
Yes.
who readily offers reassurance and answers it honestly, okay, that's another piece of information. So I would say assert in a way that makes you feel good and grounded based on the information that your nervous system's giving you, and listen to the answer and gather the data. And the
Mm-hmm.
data should guide, okay, what should I do? I don't feel so safe because I just asked this question of this person, and he just changed the subject, and or turned it around to me and said, "Oh, you're just being ridiculous. Like, why do we have to talk about that? You're ruining the moment."
Yes.
All information, right? And if that's not the answer you feel works for you, you have a different decision to make. You have a decision to make about this particular relationship. And if you think it's going down the healthy path and the path you want it to, or one that just reeks of your exes, or
Mm-hmm.
the ones that didn't work out for you, or that you don't want. So it does
Mm-hmm.
require some risk and some vulnerability. But I really
Mm-hmm.
want people to listen to the answers and not try harder or blame themselves. Oh, it's my fault. He said I'm too needy. I must be too needy. Maybe not.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you are a mature woman expressing your needs with a man who can't handle it.
Mm-hmm.
No, we gotta
I
gotta figure that out.
I think a lot of times we women refuse to see what is shown to us, like the value of support system and friends. I remember I was dating one guy, and my friend, she's like, he's not a good guy. And I'm like, oh, you don't understand. He's so dreamy. No, no. 2 months later, I realized she was right. It took me another year to
Mhm.
fully see the picture. It was
Yeah.
a process. But somebody sees it and I refuse. He showed everything that I needed to see. I just
Hmm.
didn't want to
Hmm.
accept it because I really liked the story I wrote out. And
Yes, and
that's
I
a
have
problem.
friends that will tell me similar stories. They'll say, "Oh, I had this conversation with this new guy I was dating, and he said this and that," and I'm like, "He said what? What? That's how
Yes.
he responded? No, that wasn't good." And I know this is a super smart woman.
Mm-hmm.
Something happens, right? When we feel chemistry or potential or we're attracted, some part of your brain that is like very logical and rational kind of turns off. It
It
dims.
does.
So it's not about the person not being smart and savvy and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
But when it comes to love and attraction, there's a dampening. And so that's where our friends, right? Sometimes it's a
Mm-hmm.
therapist, sometimes it's a coach, sometimes it's someone else
Yes.
who can be
Yes.
like, hey, I'm going to be the proxy for that rational part of your brain because I'm not sure you're really hearing what this person did to you or the way they
Mm-hmm.
sounded. And that really wasn't nice or it wasn't right. So
Mm-hmm.
it is good to check it out with another human who isn't involved.
Mm-hmm. Do you see that there are specific traits or attachment styles that make people more prone to going back to exes or again repeating the same cycles?
Certainly the insecure styles. Okay, so in the insecure styles, there's three. Okay, secure is obviously the goal, right? That's what we all want to
Mm-hmm.
get to is
Yeah.
that security. And the insecure styles exist on a continuum. So they're not always, extreme or something. But if you have more of an anxious style, it's like you are constantly monitoring for connection and you require a lot of it. You want more of that, the emotional energy from the person. If you're avoidant, you are more detached. You aren't as emotionally expressive. You might it might drive you to other things that draw
Mm-hmm.
your attention, like sometimes it could be alcohol, it could just be work, it could be different things that draw your attention.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a fearful avoidance style, which is kind of like a mix of the two, which usually is a result of someone who's had early trauma history. And that's
Mm-hmm.
almost like a come here, go away dynamic. So sometimes you might be avoidant, sometimes you might be really grasping for a lot of attention and a lot of emotional energy from somebody. So any of the secure styles certainly leave you at higher risk for
Mm-hmm.
developing an unhealthier relationship or just getting into a pattern where it's like the opposite energies are there. So someone highly anxious is often drawn to an avoidant person, and vice versa. So we do see that quite a bit. And if there's a little bit of it, it's certainly okay. I'm not saying it's always bad, but when they're in extremes, they can usually cause a tremendous amount of distress, in the
Mm-hmm.
relationship. So people definitely want to be careful of that. And sometimes two more avoidant people get together, and those are the ones that usually start to feel like roommates pretty quickly because nobody's bringing the emotional energy in. Nobody's coming in to talk about things and say, hey, we need to talk about us. They're just in a very conflict avoidant type of a pattern.
Mm-hmm.
So knowing a bit about your attachment style can certainly be helpful because that's just,
Mm-hmm.
again, information about, all right, I might be drawn a little more to this other type
Mm-hmm.
of style. And anyone who gets in a relationship with someone who is more securely attached usually gravitates a little more towards that. And so a
Mm-hmm.
securely attached person is usually one who is able to keep their views of relationships really balanced. They know that, hey, there's some good, there's some bad, but overall, it has a good outcome. They've seen examples of positive relationships.
Mm-hmm.
They're usually good at commitment because they value that and they know that, all right, you know what? If I'm committing to this person, I have a good idea that it's going to last. It's going to last forever. They
Mm-hmm.
believe in that. And so gravitating for people with more attachment security is certainly helpful,
Mm-hmm.
and avoiding insecure styles that are in the extreme because those are going to be very, very problematic relationships.
Why do women are so, I wouldn't say attracted, but for the lack of better word, attracted to unavailable men?
That's a great question, kind of like what we talked about earlier, which I feel like there's a pull of I'm going to fix them. I'm going to help them. My
I'm
love
different.
will bring them out right. Exactly. Um, and that, of course, is what, I wrote a whole self-help book about because
Hmm.
I found it to be such a common phenomenon. And women trying to alter themselves or blame themselves also for what's happening. So a lot of times a woman, let's say self-esteem isn't great, so they don't feel good about themselves. They feel maybe deserving of the bad behavior or the abandonment. Or they feel that, they might be avoidant as well, and that's the easiest relationship for them, right? They
Hmm.
they don't want to risk vulnerability. So if they're with a partner who doesn't either, that may feel okay to them.
Hmm.
So there's lots of reasons that they're drawn to it. And then also there's a type of unavailable man that is could be narcissistic, or have an addiction or certain things where they put up a lot of barriers to intimacy. So they might
Hmm.
actually have some type of a mental health piece or a personality disorder
Hmm.
piece that has them putting up those barriers to intimacy. So it's just like the walls there, and the woman almost, I think, finds it like a challenge. I'm going to break down the wall. I'm going to reach them.
Hmm.
I'm going to get them. But we know that it often does not work out that way. That way, it
Hmm.
doesn't work out well, and usually it ends up being a very unsatisfying relationship or a conflict-ridden relationship. So I really like women to start to, make some of the changes that we talked about so that they
Hmm.
extricate themselves from these relationships, or they make a much better conscientious effort to find someone who's open, available, more securely attached, makes them feel safe. I want
Yes.
that to be what they're searching for, and to realize that, you know, just their love is, love is not enough. Like, I think we know that already, right? And that they don't have to tolerate or put up with that type of behavior, that they are allowed to have someone be flexible and responsive to them and emotionally engaged with them.
Hmm.
And if it doesn't happen in the relationship, they're able to find someone who does offer that to them.
Hmm. Do you find that social media and just smartphones right now making it so difficult to break away from the old patterns and the access?
Definitely. I mean, wait, there the opportunity to see or hear almost anything about that person once you broke up with them. But now with social media, it makes it so much more difficult. And I think we naturally have that human curiosity. And so we're going to go look, we're going to go see what they're up to,
Yes.
see if they're dating somebody new. So I do think it makes it harder, and it's harder to stay sort of in a bubble and not have access to what's going on in that person's life. It's just much more difficult because even if you unfriend them, let's say on social media, or block them, I mean, there's a possibility that you might see them through a mutual connection or something like that. So yeah, I think it makes it unfortunately harder to completely cut off when you want
Hmm.
to.
Is there a way to protect your mental space? I always thought, like, let's say unfollowing, blocking is
Mhm.
one way. It's almost like creating the boundary. With my friends, I also deleting all the messages and the contact, like delete the contact so there is no
Yeah,
reminder and you are
right.
not tempted to text or reach out. But is it enough?
Yeah, it's best to put the as many barriers in place as you can, and look at it like that's energy. That energy could go towards that ex, or and seeing what he's doing or whatever it is. Or that energy can go elsewhere. You can
Hmm.
completely divert it in another direction. And it doesn't mean towards another person, even. It could mean that you take up that hobby that you didn't have enough time to do because of that relationship, or you make sure that you are making plans and getting together with friends much more because that relationship hadn't allowed you to do it. So I think it's going to open a door just as much as it closed it. It's just how you want to put that energy and what direction you want to put it in. And also
Mm-hmm.
knowing that in the immediate aftermath of a breakup, that's the worst time. That's the hardest time, but it absolutely gets better. It does fade. It's almost like
Mm-hmm.
you have to get over the main hump of like the immediacy of that breakup, and you will get to the other side, and your feelings will be very, very different. And I know most people, when they do end up meeting a new person, that is great.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, I cannot believe I wanted to go back to that person. I would say 99% of the time, they're happy and it was meant to be, and they realized it, and that there was someone else who really was a better match for them.
I think it's like in a fairy tales, right? You have to kiss multiple frogs before you find somebody, but you need to know what doesn't work for you. As long as I think you recognize the
Yes.
patterns and you accept that that does not work for you, and it helps you rebuild your self-worth. So when, like you said, when the right, not even the right person, but the person you are comfortable with and you can be
Mhm.
yourself with, that's when you recognize that it matters more than chemistry.
Right, absolutely, absolutely. And you've got to give yourself the opportunity to figure that out. And
Hmm.
again, going really slow. It's going to show up over time. And paying attention to the cues, the signals, the messages that you're getting, not ignore them. Pay attention to how conflict happens in the relationship, how boundaries
Hmm.
are respected, how that person shows up in an emotionally available way.
Hmm.
So, yeah, like, focus on creating your own secure emotional dynamic with the person, and somebody which should be capable of doing that with you.
Yes, absolutely. And the final question, the successful relationship. I mean, we tend to romanticize and be like, oh my
Mhm.
gosh, he's like Prince Charming. But like, what exactly, what women should focus on outside of feeling safe? That's like our primary
Mhm.
feeling. You should feel safe with the men because that's our biology. They are protecting us. And if our body is
Mhm.
in uncomfortable, something's off. Like you need to be strong enough to
Right.
walk away.
Right.
What other big signs for women, again, who are kind of new to that, to
Mhm.
pay attention to that this is a green flag for a healthy
Mhm.
relationship?
Right, right. So I think know what you're kind of alluding to here is that just knowing better doesn't always lead to choosing better. If old emotional habits are running the show, if it's still coming in. So
Mm-hmm.
I think the constant self-reflectiveness is going to be really important. What is this bringing up in me? What does this relationship feel like inside? What is my gut telling me? And when I communicate, right, if I speak up, if I share something, whether that's a problem I'm having, something that I think is coming up between us that I want to resolve, how is that communication received? Do you feel like there's an open door that you can walk in? Do you feel
Mm-hmm.
like somebody handled you with care? Do you feel that deep in your bones that this person has your back?
Mm-hmm.
That's what's, I'd say, really, really critical that I would want women to know that are venturing out in the world, trying to find love. And
Mm-hmm.
don't settle. If you don't get what I'm naming here, there's no reason to settle. And I think things are trending, unfortunately, in that direction, because women now are much more savvy and smarter, and they do demand the safety and the security and the emotional investment of another person. And they're realizing I can actually do just fine without it. If the person doesn't enhance my life, I will
Mm-hmm.
do just fine without it. And I've got friends and I've got other things that make life feel valuable to me and enjoyable. So I would say you got to ask yourself, if you're better off without anybody is better
Hmm.
than maybe being with somebody where it really isn't healthy or it's distressed.
In my opinion, yes. Because if you left the old relationship for those specific reasons, why are you walking into the new relationship that gonna make
Mhm.
you feel exactly the same way? So it means
Right.
eventually you're going to walk out.
Hmm.
And also it now takes up space when something new can come in.
Right.
So
Absolutely. Yes.
so I think for women who going through divorce after divorce, I think the biggest lesson, slow down, listen to how your body responds, kind of look at how you feel around this specific partner, and don't
Mhm.
settle. And it's okay not to settle.
It's okay not to settle. And you don't have to, times have changed. You don't have to
Hmm.
have a romantic relationship if either.
Hmm.
If, you don't want one, or if you want to live life a little differently, it is perfectly okay. And that's probably a place that's going to have you choosing someone who's really good for you, right? If you're okay
Hmm.
not having them, you're fine on your own. You're going to choose from that place of stability and security in yourself.
For sure. Well, Dr. Marnie, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for sharing advice and just guidance for women how to recognize unhealthy patterns and what to look for,
Mhm.
what it should
Oh,
feel
you're
like.
you're very welcome. I love talking about this stuff. It was a great conversation.
And thank you again. I cannot wait to actually read the books on breadcrumbing because I think it's so
Yes.
important for women to recognize. And again, how to build a healthy relationship. We need to rewire ourselves because we women, we like to
Yes.
give ourselves too much, and we need to start
Yes.
giving ourselves.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, thank you again. And thank you guys for listening to Uncoupled and Unfiltered.
That's it for this episode of Uncoupled and Unfiltered. If you're loving the raw truth and practical takeaways, do the badass thing and rate and review the show wherever you listen. It helps more good people find their way out of the chaos. And check the show notes. Yeah, we actually put some useful stuff in there. Resources, links, tools, go grab what you need. Until next time, don't settle, don't shrink, and don't look back.